All right, we're good. Thanks for coming today. This is the first workshop in a while that is solely focused on people who teach face-to-face. And hopefully you'll be able to get a lot of ideas from this workshop today. And I'm going to go ahead and turn off my video so that I can focus on the presentation. So I'm just going to turn that off and I am going to share. Hopefully all of you can see. Let me put it in slideshow mode. Can you see this in slideshow mode?
Yes.
All right, wonderful. So this presentation is called The Art of Being Untethered from the Podium. I remember when I was in college, which was a long time ago, I had a lot of faculty members that just stood behind the podium and talked to me forever. And that's no longer what students want in higher education. Students want more of an interactive learning experience from their faculty members. And that's what I'm going to share today are some ideas to get you feeling like you have enough information and enough ideas to infuse some of these into what you're doing in your face-to-face classroom. All right, let's minimize that. Okay, so the first part is taking a new look at your lectures that you have created for your courses. If you are extremely slide dependent on what you're teaching in your classroom, that is what being tethered means, because you're depending on or leaning on those slides to help you teach your students. I'm not saying slides are wrong. Don't get me wrong. What I'm saying is that there are times that you can take a break in the lecture for some activities. So look at your slides if you're using them. Look at how many slides you have for the length of course that you're teaching, whether it's an hour in front of your students or an hour and a half or 3 hours in front of your students. Check that out. Look at your presentations. While this workshop is not about your presentations, I wanted to put this in here because it's important, because it's an important aspect of how you're teaching is looking at your slides. If you think your slides are pretty awful, meaning there's a lot of words on them and maybe they look very unappealing, they need some better aesthetics, you can reach out to a city instructional designer and they can help you improve those. But ideally, what you want to have on your slides are no more than 6 lines and no more than 6 words per line. That sounds a little crazy, maybe, if you have a lot of words on your slides. But you can find some natural breaks in your slideshow for some activities, and I will give you a bunch of ideas today. If you looked at the Canva link already, the infographic link, you'll see a bunch of those that I'm going to be talking about today. And don't forget the importance of using images in your slides and even some videos. If the video is going to give students more of an insight about what you're talking about versus what you have to say. But be aware of how long your videos are. If your videos are a little bit too long, the students might get bored. Anybody remember the length of video that we say in City to kind of focus on? Anybody remember that? Say it out loud because I can't see anything except my screen. I can't see you. I can't see the chat. Anyone?
15 minutes.
Less than that.
10.
A little less than that. You can't see me. I'm putting my hands up. I forgot you can't see me when my video's up. I have my hands up showing you about 7 minutes. So about 7 minutes is a really good video length. I wonder if somebody's going to be doing some more research on that, because I think the research that says about 7 minutes is even old. I mean, it's not that old, but when we're talking about students these days, quote unquote, I believe attention spans are getting worse. So it might even be shorter than that. I haven't had recent research on that. I'll have to check. Anyway, going back to the point of this workshop. So here are some activity ideas to get your students interacting and to take the load off of you to teach by getting the students involved. So before class, when students are just coming in, sitting down, getting settled, um, you can have a sort of pre-class point. So you can do that the old-fashioned way by writing it on the board and asking the students to come up and write on the board. Or if you like technology or know how to use the technology, you can use a polling tool like Poll Everywhere to have the students answer the question about what was the most challenging part of their homework or the last lecture they had, or what are some questions that are in their mind right now that you can perhaps focus on at the start of the class. And so getting the students up and out of their seat or using technology to basically anonymously tell you what the muddiest point was is a really great way to start the class. Another activity, and this we talk about all the time, is assigning teaching to students. I've seen this happen in Rush Medical College in the past, and it's extremely powerful. You don't have to have 5 minutes for the students to teach an assigned topic. You can make this however you want it to. You can assign topics at the start of a course, and students will be presenting throughout the entire semester. Or you can even say at the beginning of class, you can say, all right, these are the topics that we went over last time that you were supposed to read about before you came to class today. We're going to put you into groups, and I want one person out of your group to be the teacher, and the rest of the students need to tell them what they need to be teaching. And then have each a member of the student group come up and teach that topic again to the students, or summarize a topic for the students. You can make it any way you want. You can do Stump the Prof. So this is only for people who are really secure in their professorhood to be able to stump the prof. And what that means is you give the students an opportunity to put questions to you to answer about whatever topic you guys are studying at that time. But stump the prof is, I bet you it's going to be pretty cool to have the students ask you questions to see if they can stump you. And as a faculty member, I will tell you, it humanizes you if you don't know the answer to what the student is asking. Because what happens is if there's a question that a student brings to you and you don't know the answer, that will give the entire class and you the opportunity to answer that question together, to find that information and do it together in class to look for the information. You can also have your students find the errors. So you could perhaps bring an article that you know isn't really accurate, or maybe they had a flawed research design, or something's just not quite right about whatever it is that you bring in. And you can have the students find the errors, or you can even use case studies that you write or find online, and you change something in that case study that is wrong. It can't be like that. Something's wrong with that particular case, and they have to figure out what it is. It could be a patient is given the wrong medication. A patient is given the wrong suggestion for how to fix their problem. It could be that a medicine is prescribed that has a bad interaction with a different medication the patient is taking currently. So you can do all kinds of things to get your students to be digging into information to find errors in something. You can have students create visual aids for topics that you're teaching. So this is a bit of a shift from the assigned topics idea or having students teach is you can ask students ahead of time. You don't want to just give them 10 minutes to do it. Ask students ahead of time, hey, your job is to create a visual aid or a video or an infographic or an image, whatever. You can keep that open-ended for this particular topic, and you give them the topic, and then when that topic comes up in class, the student presents their visual aid or their video or their infographic. It's a great way to get students really digging into the information, and the students who do this will remember the information a lot more having them do something like this than they would just listening to you talk about it the whole class time. Another idea is an end of class reflection. So at the end of the day, before the students leave, you can have them you can do a muddiest point then if you want to, or you can just ask them, how did it go? What was the best thing you learned? What was the most surprising thing? What still confuses you? You can do that through Poll Everywhere. You could do that as a Canvas quiz. You can use another tool, another technology tool to do this. Any comments or questions about that section? Bronca, by the way, if there's a chat, would you mind watching it since I can't see it? You hear me, Bronca?
Yes, I'm sorry, I raised my thumb, but yes.
I can't see you. I can't see anything.
Oh.
You just see my screen. Okay, great.
Yes.
All right, here's some more. I have like 4 slides of activity ideas. So let's do this. Flipping your class. Bronca, what program did you help do this?
I did this for a course in the occupational therapy.
Okay. Awesome. So if you've never done flipped your class, that is an involved thing. That's not something you can just do tomorrow. That takes a lot of planning. So that is what the medical college does. They shifted to that in 2018, I believe, where the students study, read, watch, etc., the information ahead of time, and then they come to class ideally prepared to do activities, to discuss, take a quiz, whatever. They so it takes a lot of shifting on your part to flip your classroom, but it's a pretty powerful learning experience. By the way, students initially hate it. They hate it so much they complain about it, but then research shows that they learn more in that way than in a traditional lecture. So in the end, they figure it's not that bad, that they learn a lot, but they initially don't like it. So another idea is, instead of an individual, you can also have student groups that are responsible to teach a concept each week. That's a little difficult unless everyone is local. But if you're teaching a face-to-face class, more than likely the students are in a reasonable distance from each other, or they can work online to create a small lesson plan and teach a course together, teach a concept together. So creating learning videos, I mentioned this in the previous slide, but this is just a little bit extra. You can make it a friendly competition. And what I mean by that is, when the students create their learning videos, you can keep them maybe in a YouTube channel, or you can keep them in your Canvas course, the links to these videos. And at the end of the course, the students vote who made the best video of the entire class, and that student gets something special. Whether it's extra credit, whether it's, I don't know, a certificate. I'm not sure what, you could do, but having a friendly competition like that is pretty fun. You can do start of class collaborative quizzing. Collaborative quizzing is, it very simply put, the students come to class, they take a quiz alone. They can do it on the LMS, they can do it on paper, okay? They take the quiz alone. Then they get with a group of students and they take the quiz together. The student's grade is a combination of their individual score and their group score. What happens in collaborative quizzing, though, your students will retain a significantly higher amount of information than just taking a quiz on their own. I provide an article that covers collaborative quizzing in the OTCD course. Dr. Maureen Rutherford from Indiana University Northwest wrote an article about it some years ago. She actually took my training class. This is way back when. I don't remember when it was, maybe 2015 or something like that. And that's where I presented the idea of collaborative quizzing. And she was like, this sounds pretty cool. I want to give it a try. And so she did. And she was really impressed with the results. And so she studied it. You can always look that up if you want to make a note of Maureen Rutherford. And you can find that collaborative quizzing article. So you can do group-based problem-solving tasks. So if you present a problem to a group of students, you could do it on your own, or you could use AI to come up with some problems in that particular area that you're studying or working on. And you can print them out if you want, or have them in Canvas in a module, and the groups solve a problem. They can have the same problem that they're solving, or they can have a slightly different problem, every group having a little bit of a different problem to solve. And then you regroup and sort of share what you came up with, which is an awesome activity for any level of student. You can stop and ask. So stop your lecture and have students ask questions. And you can do it without technology if you want to. You can do it with technology with the help of Poll Everywhere. And you can do that anonymously so students don't feel like nervous that they'll look stupid if they ask a question. You can have it anonymously submitted, or you can just do it the old-fashioned way with index cards or pieces of paper. And you go around and collect the cards and you look at them and you answer the questions that the students have. Any of you play Kahoot before? Kahoot is not just for K through 12 students. Kahoot is really fun. And so we have a license for Kahoot, by the way. You can play that game, Jeopardy Labs, if you want to play a Jeopardy game with your students to go over chapter summaries or to check for understanding or just to make the class a little bit more interesting. There's one that Bronca showed us in City called Word Wall. I have that listed in one of the slides and on the infographic. So you can actually write a bunch of questions on that show up on this wheel, and you spin it, and then a student group or just an individual student, however you want to do it. I think it's best in groups, small groups, and then the small groups gets to answer that question related to what it is that you're working on. That might seem a little bit childish, but even grown-ups like play and like fun, and it breaks up the monotony of what they're always doing in class. Anybody in the group use Jeopardy Labs before or Kahoot?
Yes.
Who said yes? I'm going to try to find people.
Gabriella said yes.
Okay, how did it go?
It went really well. Jeopardy is fun. It's incredible how it just immediately engages students, and it activates their competitive side. So we had a ton of fun with that. And then Kahoots, I think I've used less, but it's great just to do some level setting and understand, I ask kind of probing questions to see has this issue ever come up yet in your career, and what's your level of familiarity, and kind of just do some baseline surveying.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And it's fun competing is fun. No matter how old you are, but in a competitive situation is pretty cool too. Thank you, Clayton, and thank you, Mary Beth, for the chats. And Bronca's adding some things in the chat right now. So let me go back to my slideshow here. All right, debating and role play. So this is most effective when you're using very real world scenarios. Those scenarios can come from your own professional experience. They could also come from a web search. They could come from AI writing scenarios for you based on the class that you're teaching and the concept that you're learning at that point. So you can have students debate how to act or what to do in a certain scenario. And the more ethically questionable it is, I think the funner it is. It's just fun and interesting being put in a situation where you have some ethical dilemmas and having students role play. Some will probably moan and groan by being put in a role play situation, but it puts them there, and you're asking them to pretend to be in this position that they're going to have one day, and how would they respond? And giving students little note cards that tells them what their character is and what to do, I think would be a whole lot of fun. So the new thing, this is something new that I have not heard of before, called the jigsaw method. And what the jigsaw method does is it allows you to assign different tasks or different readings, different articles, whatever, to student groups. That group analyzes the article, the chapter, the case, whatever you want, okay, that you assign to these groups, and they analyze it and they talk about it, summarize it. What did we learn from this? Tear it apart. If it's a research study and you have a research type course, they can tear it apart. But then what happens is you change those groups. So you mix them up. And then each person from their previous group kind of goes over and teaches what they learned from their article to the other people in the group. So it's like a bunch of people teaching each other, and they can synthesize and critique all of these things together. It takes a little bit of planning ahead of time for you, but it would be a very effective way to get through a lot of material in one class, because the students aren't going to take a ton of time teaching each other, but the students will get a pretty thorough understanding of what it is that you're wanting them to learn that day. You can do an in-class workshop or an in-class studio session where they're working on their material together. So having them draft research questions together in small groups or in pairs, drafting research proposals, reviewing research proposals or research studies, and analyzing it for whatever it is that you're teaching them that day or in that module. The students can design interventions on certain cases to get and do this all together in class. So you can lecture a little bit, break it off for a second and have activity number 1, then lecture a little bit more, and then do activity number 2, so that you still have time to teach, you still have time to lecture, but it's broken up, and you can, detach yourself from that podium, from that computer, from that screen, and be able to walk around and get involved with what the students are doing during class. Any questions or comments so far about the activities Or anybody like hear one that like, ooh, I would really like to try that. Silence. Okay, the people listening to this recording are probably going to be like, oh, is my volume off? Did my volume not work? That's okay. I just wanted to check and see. Okay. And here, I believe, is my last slide of activities. So most of you know what very well about case-based learning. It's one of the most effective ways to teach a concept in the application of that concept by having students respond to cases. You can also have students write cases together in class. If you give them an example of what you want them to write, and they can even use AI. If you allow students to use AI for certain things, this would be a perfect example of what to use AI for, to write a case. And then you can use those cases in a future class with student permission. Socratic questioning. So a great way to break up your lecture, obviously, is asking the students questions. If you happen to be teaching, let's say, an undergraduate course, like a large class, you have a lot of students, you can always try the tool Wheel of Names. I think Branka even shared with you another version of that, a wheel of something or other. But wheelofnames.com, you can throw your students' names in there and you can spin it, and the student's name who is chosen has to answer the question. There is nothing more sweat invoking than knowing that you have the possibility of being asked a question in front of 90 other students. So you'll probably be very, very prepared for that class if you know that your faculty member is going to be randomly choosing people's names to answer questions. But that's what Socratic questioning is making sure that your questions are very open-ended. Maybe there's not a right answer. Maybe the answer is just what would be the lesser of the evils, right? It's great to be able to throw those out to your students and to get them all talking. So you can push your students to justify some of their assumptions about things when you're doing Socratic questioning, because all of us come to learning experiences with our own life experiences, with our own biases, with our own filters, and that affects us. It affects everything that we do. And through Socratic questioning, you can really push students to justify why it is they think a certain way about a certain topic, and getting them to be a little bit more aware of that. You can have students examine evidence. So looking at research studies together, you can ask the students to decide whether or not that population was the most appropriate population for this particular study. You know, do you think it's reliable? Why or why not? So yeah, the Socratic questioning is really good. So another way of doing it would be you're studying this particular case. Would your response be the same if you completely changed the context, whether it's the location of the hospital, the clinic? Maybe you're in a very rural area working with, people who don't tend to go to the doctor very much. And what if you're in a very urban situation where there is a dense population of people? Maybe you have a crime-ridden area. Like, how would we change how we deal with this dependent upon the population of people that we're in? Problem-based learning is similar to case-based learning, where you are presenting the students with a problem to solve. I love this method of activity. In a face-to-face class, in a blended class, in an online class, it's so effective, especially if you're asking the students to dig into problems that are very relevant to their communities. It's awesome. So it's pretty simple. You can look it up online if you want to dig into problem-based learning a little bit more. But if the problems mean something to the students as an individual, it's much more meaningful for them to problem solve individually or together in a class. You can do start of class collaborative quizzing. We already covered that. Apparently, I was just repeating myself in some of these slides. I did this over a couple of days, and anyway, it just means it's important and it's fun. So you can do think, pair, share activities, and that's talked about a lot in undergraduate classes, but you can layer it with a little bit more complexity for graduate level learners. And so think, pair, share, okay, is where you pose a question to your students. Its complexity can vary depending on the level of the course that you're teaching. Then you ask the students to think about it alone, perhaps take notes, reflect on it. Then you have the students come together, either in pairs or in very small groups, and have them talk to each other about the potential answer to that question. And then after a certain amount of time, you come together as a whole group and you discuss the complex question. So you can layer that a little bit by asking students, especially at the graduate level, to include research in their response. Find research that supports what they're saying. You can ask students to find data about what it is that they are suggesting, what's already out there, what has already been studied, who studied what, when was it studied, and what were the data that came out of that. And then you can ask the students to even reanalyze findings from previous studies. For example, this isn't relevant to any course that any of you are teaching, but I'm very curious about the research on attention span and video watching with students. I'm super curious about that. And I would love to dig into that data and look at it. Okay, when was this study, when did they do it? What were the results? Was it different after COVID than before COVID? Are we different even now, 6 years after, or even 4 years after? I guess COVID kind of lasted a couple of years, like 4 years later. How is it different how students take in video content, and where's the moment that they look away and they get distracted? I bet you it is different. It's different. I bet you it's not 7 minutes anymore. I'm going to guess it's 5. I want to find that research, by the way. You can also do concept mapping or knowledge modeling in class. If you don't want to use a technology, you don't have to. You can use a marker, some markers, and your whiteboard, and have the students do it the old-fashioned way, like the young woman in the image. But if you want to use technology, here are some ideas that you can use. Padlet, by the way, we will be getting some licenses for Padlet in this coming fiscal year. So look for that announcement as we get closer. We won't have a lot of licenses, but we will have some, and it'll be a faculty application just to, whoever wants to use it, letting us know how you plan to use it or whatever, since we won't be able to get a full university license. You can also do micro writing and reflection. So what this is when the students are in class, if you're halfway through your lecture and you ask the students just to stop what they're doing and do 5 minutes of writing, brainstorming, reflecting on what it is that you talked about the first half of class, questions that they have, research they want to dig into, all of that, doing that really helps those neural pathways in the brain with remembering and scaffolding to previous knowledge, because they'd have to bring up previous knowledge that they've had and be able to write that down. Or you you can have them do simple reflections. You can do it in Canvas if you want, or you can have the students use pen and paper the old-fashioned way and reflect on a specific question that you want to ask them. And you can come back and talk about it. I lied. That wasn't the last slide. So here's a few more. Real-time polling and opinion mapping. This is great. Do you remember clickers? Who remembers clickers? Did Rush have clickers?
We still do.
What? Are you
Pretty
serious?
sure. I'm pretty sure, yeah. I'm pretty sure I've heard people talk about clickers.
Well, clickers are a bit outdated, but we have online tools that can do basically the same thing. So you can have spots in your lecture where you have a poll everywhere link or QR code, and you can have your students respond to a poll or put their opinion. What would you do? What would you do next in this situation that you're giving them? This is the patient. This is what's going on. What would you do next? Poll everywhere. You can have it totally anonymous. It's better to be anonymous than students aren't worried that they're going to look stupid. Or if you want, you can use Microsoft Forms. I don't know Forms all that well, but it's one way of doing that, but poll everywhere would be better. Reflective dialogue circles. So this would be appropriate, let's say in like healthcare law, right? That's something that came into my head. So where students are dealing with people a lot. Okay, the job that they're going to have or the job they want to get, promotion that they want to get, if they have to deal with people or even patients, direct care with patients, you have very structured conversations about a topic. Each student participates, gives their thoughts, gives their opinion, and you encourage the students and model for the students active listening. How they should behave, what their body language should look like, how they would respond as professionals and putting them in that particular situation, having a reflective dialogue with each other. It's not really role play and it's not really an informal discussion. It's somewhere in the middle of that. But teaching the students to listen, ask reflective questions, provide insight, and it will help them sort of understand the type of behavior they ought to have when they're in their new position, whether it's like, managing a healthcare organization, law, patient advocacy. Authentic task simulations. So this would be putting your students in a very real simulation, except not going to the sim center per se, but giving them a task that would mirror what they would be like in a professional situation. Whether it's looking at reports, reviewing grant proposals, or having to respond to a situation that they might be in professionally. I have 5 minutes left. These are the last 2 slides. So here are some technologies that we have at Rush that could help you with some of these activities. Kahoot is for the games. Poll Everywhere we have had for a really long time. Microsoft Suite, there are a lot of options in the Microsoft Suite. If you're not sure how to use some of them, you can reach out to City and we will help you the best we can. We'll even help you with Kahoot and Poll Everywhere if you are not used to using them. Copilot for AI, even though I don't think it's technically supported by Brush, but we have it. And here are some other tools listed that could help you with different activities. So Wheel of Names, and then there's Word Wall, Padlet, Socrative, which is another game. It's just not as beautiful as Kahoot. There's also Exit Tickets is part of Socrative too. Okay, so that is the end of my session on the art of being untethered. This is the first time we've ever used this QR code for a workshop survey, the provost really wants us to start keeping track of who is attending these workshops. And I don't mean who as in your name, I mean who from the colleges and programs. She was really curious about that, and we don't have this information, so we're going to try to start gathering that information to be able to have that. And it's probably also interesting to your colleges and your programs who is attending professional development. But yeah, this QR code will take you there. And if I could get to forms really quickly, I can. Let me see if I can do it quickly. Because sometimes I should have had that preloaded, but like I said, I haven't done it in a long time. I haven't done this workshop in a long time. Any questions before we leave? All right, I was able to get that link really quick. I want to throw it in the chat. Any comments? There's the link. Slido, yes, a lot of places use Slido. I don't think we have a license for it, but I think maybe HR does, but I don't think they're sharing it with normal people like us. I don't think so, but we can look into that if you want to. But thank you, everyone. I appreciate you attending. Hopefully you got some good ideas out of this. And if you need any help with any of it, the QR code didn't work. Oh, well, I tried. I tried. But you can use the link. It's really a fast survey. There's basically only 2 questions. Where are you from? What college are you from? How would you rate this? And why? And currently you don't have to tell me why, but anyway, thank you everyone. I hope you have a wonderful day. I appreciate your time.